Alright, this is our day 19. Let's take a look at how we can make our game a little more professional. Alright, so I'm using my day-night scene here from the previous video. And you can see here we have all these rocks, and technically they're asteroids, but they all look exactly the same. Now, when you're playing a game, this can be very boring, even if subconsciously, because you just have this tiled thing over and over and over. It's why when you make a tile set, a good tile set looks like it's not repeating, even though it is. And if we take a look at something like Binding of Isaac here, if we just look at the rocks purely in the four corners, we can see they're all positioned the same. They're all in the corners, they take the same shapes, but the rocks are completely different, which prevents you from noticing that they're, or really thinking about them all being exactly the same. And Binding of Isaac has this throughout the whole game. This is just one instance of it. And by doing this, this allows your game to be a little more unique, a little more polished in that sense. And it doesn't have to be rocks like we're doing here, like we're Binding of Isaac there. Trees, they could be statues. Really, it could be anything that you have multiples of. Like these flowers, if I wanted the flowers as their own separate thing, or the bushes here beside the house and over here, we can completely randomize those up too. And at the source, that's what we're doing. So what we have here is we have a bunch of rocks in the form of a sprite sheet. Now, like I said, technically they're asteroids. I'll bring it out here. And we can see we have they're all similar, but they all have a variety. All have differences to them. Slight differences, the size, shapes, the crevices, the texture that you can imagine feeling. I'm going to go ahead and just remove those, but we can see that that's what it is, and when we bring that in, it's a sprite, and that's fine for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the animation section and set our H frames and vertical frames. It's the horizontal frames. So going across, how many do we have? 8. That lowers to 1. And vertically, we have 8 as well. So if I put in 8 for both of those, I'll end up with 1 individual sprite. Now, of course, mine are much smaller because this is obviously way too big for this. But you can see now I can come in and I can pick between the frames here. And because this is constantly rotating and they're all different asteroids, we see it technically there's a slight animation to it. And if you wanted, you could animate this way. But in this case, since we're just going to use them as rocks that are placed around, this gives us 0 to 63, so 64 different rocks that I could have in any of these places. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my rock. I'm going to create a new script for it, and I'm just going to call it, I can just leave it as rock.gd, hit create, and all we're going to do is randomize this based on the amount of frames we have. Now we have 64 frames, which will give us 0 to 63. But all we have to do to make this a little more professional looking and less boring to look at, right? At least subconsciously for the player, all we have to do is get self.frame. So I'm hitting all these buttons. So self.frame. And that's going to equal a random frame. Now that random frame, we're going to make a variable here. This should have a lowercase r, random frame, which can be set on our ready function. And for this, we're just going to, it's just going to be a random number. So randi, open and close parentheses. And outside of that, I'm just going to do %64. Now why? Because we have 64 frames, and this is going to start at 0 and go 64, so it's 0 to 63. So this is exclusive. If we wanted to, we could do +1, and then this would give us 1 to 64, for example. And again, you can do +2. This would give us 2 to 66, and so on. So we're just going to do %64 to give us a number between 0 and 63, which is perfect because that's the amount of frames that we have. And just to be safe, so I doubt this is something that has changed, we're just going to go ahead and call randomize to our seed, just to help make sure that things are completely random. So if we were to play this now and take a look, we see all these rocks are slightly different. Actually, we just have one individual who's actually put it on all of them. And really, this would probably be one instance if you just instance into your scene over and over, instead of having a bunch of individual things like this. But that's beside the point. We'll still get the same effect here. So we see now we're getting completely different rocks, and we're going to get that every time that we open this. So just that simple change can completely change up the feel of the game, make the game look a little more polished, a little more professional. And like I said, it does not work with just rocks. It gives you with bushes, trees, statues, a wide variety of different things. And of course, you can use sprite sheets like this as well with frames to take advantage of saving space in your game. Instead of having like 30 different sprite images, you just have them all into one sprite sheet. Alright, so there you go. There you have it. Here's how you can make your game look a little more professional by varying up the objects in your games.